Welcome to SaaS Backwards, a podcast that helps SaaS CEOs and GTM teams to accelerate growth and enhance profitability. Our guest today is Hikari Senju, founder and CEO of Omneky, a generative AI platform built for performance advertising. In this episode, we'll explore how AI is reshaping advertising, particularly for B2B SaaS companies. Hikari will walk us through Omneky's AI-powered ad generation platform, discuss the future of creative testing and optimization, and examine both the promise and pitfalls of AI in performance marketing. Hikari, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ken. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, this is a great topic for us, and I'm interested in learning more. But before we get into it, could you tell us something about yourself and your company, Omneky?
So I'm the founder and CEO of Omneky. Omneky generates and optimizes high-performing advertising campaigns and advertising creative. Users can sign up today, 7-day free trial, start generating beautiful on-brand ads within minutes, and launch them all through our tool across all major social and social advertising channels.
So you founded this company about, 6 or 7 years ago, right? What were you doing before then?
Yeah, so my background is I grew up in New York, in Westchester. I studied computer science at Harvard. I got really into AI. I was focusing on artificial intelligence at Harvard. I was also taking a lot of coursework at MIT on AI. And I had started 2 venture-backed companies in college, one of which was in education. It was acquired by another company in the Bay Area where I became the head of marketing. So before starting Omneky, I was noodling on like AI because I wanted to start another company and I wanted to be in AI. I was like kind of noodling in different ideas. I was running marketing and I saw an opportunity for AI to autonomously generate and optimize creative and advertising campaigns across all different channels. That's why Omneky is called Omneky, because we're an omni-channel platform, and ultimately democratize growth, which is our mission. Empower more small businesses and business owners to connect with their customers earlier in their life cycle and increase their chance of being successful by lowering the cost of go-to-market. And so it was the mission and that was the vision. And we've just been kind of really focusing on this problem since day one.
That's great. In our prep session, and I think here you've really talked about Omneky as an end-to-end platform, that you can generate, launch, and optimize ads. So why don't we just dig into the product a little bit? How would a marketer use it from sign up to execution?
So users sign up. When they sign up, they add their website. We scrape the brand website. We'll summarize the brand information we've scraped, the product assets, the product photos, the product descriptions. Customers can confirm the summarizations and kind of the product info and brand info that we've been able to garner from the website. Customers can also upload their own brand information, brand guidelines. And then we highly suggest customers select a couple of reference ads and upload a couple of reference ads that they really like the designs of, because we really want to ensure that the ads are as on brand as possible on that first try. So then once you've kind of uploaded all this information and confirmed this information, the ad gets to work. And then within really a minute or two, it generates a little over a handful of beautiful image and video ads in different dimensions that showcases your product in the style that you're seeking, that is on brand. And then you can launch those ads directly through our interface to Meta and Google and other social platforms. You can edit the ads through our interface. We have a robust AI editing interface. You can turn those into variations, and then you can also view insights about the performance of your omni-channel ad campaign. So we can connect Meta, Google, and other social platforms from the analytics standpoint. We combine all that information, and you can start seeing across all your different campaigns what types of creative is driving ultimately conversions and return on ad spend and improving return on ad spend for you. And then our AI will actually utilize that information to generate additional ads for you that you can then approve, edit, or launch. And so that's kind of the end-to-end workflow from sign up to kind of optimization.
Can you actually launch into the ad platforms themselves?
Yes.
Directly from your platform?
Yes.
So that's great. So it's an opportunity for marketers to build and deploy all in one place, right? Build, deploy, and analyze in one place.
Exactly. I mean, I think today advertisers have a plethora of options to run ads on. There's obviously a lot of social platforms to run ads, and you have Meta, you have TikTok, you have Snapchat, you have Reddit, you have LinkedIn, then you have CTV, programmatic television. That is increasingly a popular advertising medium. and there's a lot of options for buying and launching media there. And then you have gaming and you have display. And so there are probably over, a dozen platforms that advertisers probably top of mind you can think of when it comes to, I want to connect with my customers on that interface. And our belief is that advertisers, big and small, don't want to go into, dozen ad accounts, platforms, create accounts individually and optimize and create ads for every single one. They would like to manage that experience, that generative experience, we say. Customers would want to manage their generative experiences through one interface and then orchestrate those omni-channel campaigns in one place where all the data is getting collected in one place. They can see trends across different platforms and different channels, and then launch consistent brand experience from one place. Because otherwise, if you're going to delegate every platform to create your generative experience for you, well, then it's quite possible that those experiences might become very different depending on the platform. And then you'll lose brand consistency, you'll lose brand recall, brand trust, because at the end of the day, consistency is what is, the bedrock for trust. So it's important for the advertiser, for the marketer to make sure that the brand experience is consistent across all customer touch points. And at the same time, though, and the challenge is making it personalized as well. So it's not just about consistent brand experiences, but consistent and personalized across different customer touch points. And that's really the challenge that we're helping customers solve with our omni-channel orchestration and generative tool.
Well, let's dig a little into the generation of content. It's not a surprise to you and our listeners that a concern that people in B2B and consumer marketing have is that AI generated content often sounds like, generic or bland or derivative. So how does Omneky ensure that creative quality and brand alignment occur instead of, sort of replicating and magnifying sort of the average?
Absolutely. So I think, there's really great research that shows that a lot of the creativity gets condensed and kind of squashed when you use like the default prompts and the default kind of interfaces. And so this is why, as part of onboarding, and I was really stressing this as part of the onboarding, is we get as much of the brand context information and reference styles and ideally the performance data as much as possible when we're creating that initial ad, because that additional context is what creates differentiated experience. What is it that's unique about your brand? What is it about your brand that's driving higher engagement? What are the styles and designs that you're aspirationally seeking from your marketing? By the way, our product starts at $99 a month. So accessible for, I think, almost any marketing team, big or small, is, maybe you don't want to even hire a designer and we can create content for you better than the average designer with AI, for just $99 a month and help you orchestrate these brand experiences at a very affordable price for basically any small business owner. And so in order for us to be successful doing that, not only do we have to offer it at a competitive price, but also to make sure that, that the ad is on brand. And so that's why we make sure that we incorporate as much of, and we seek and we scrape and we research as much brand information as possible and get your kind of confirmation on that to then generate those experiences for you.
And maybe it's a good time to talk about, who your actual ideal customer is. As you've mentioned, very low bar to start working with Omneky. So who are you trying to sell to as your ideal customers?
Sure. So, the company's been around for 7+ years, as you mentioned, and I think that our ideal customer profile has changed strategically as we've grown and as time has passed. And so when I started the company back in 2018, the focus was we're very early in the market. I know we're very early, and 2018 is before the whole Gen AI boom and craze. So the idea was, let's focus on enterprise and mid-market companies, work closely with them, perfect the product, and then when we believe that the product was ready to scale on its own, then pivot hard into kind of a self-service scaling motion. And so for our first couple of years, we're really more focused on mid-market enterprise brands and really building custom models for them, building custom interfaces for them, and really focusing on the whole, that kind of enterprise workflow. Earlier this year, we pivoted really to focusing on SMBs and really servicing the long, wide group of the tens of millions of small business advertisers that advertise on platforms like Meta and Google to make it easier for them to launch ads and create ads and start scaling their businesses. And so in that realm, our customers range from a lot of these are e-commerce companies. A lot of these are local service businesses. So like a local roofing company or, an electrician even looking to advertise their services. And we have a lot of agencies that are signing up, looking for them. And they're looking find ways for scaling their businesses. And so those are kind of, I would say, the personas that are currently signing up and finding value from our tools.
Did you have to redevelop them, like the interface and the
Oh, for sure.
experience?
Yeah, I mean, like, we must be at, like, Omneky 5.0 or 6.0 in terms of the number of times we've rewritten the product from scratch. I mean, first of all, we've had to rebuild our database multiple times. The first iteration of the database is not fast enough or not flexible enough to get the kind of insights that we're seeking. And so we had to rewrite that database to make it more cost effective, faster, real-time insights. So we can also collect data from larger sources. We've had to rewrite the front-end interface multiple times as well as the technology has improved and as we've written the Gen AI wave and the underlying capabilities improve. We have to rewrite that interface between the user and these generative models. And then obviously the underlying actual AI itself, we have to level up consistently and rewrite that infrastructure. So yeah, I mean, I would say that we've had numerous iterations of the platform over the years.
That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned insights as part of the platform, and I think it's pretty important, right, to know what's working. And you've mentioned that you use insights across Meta, Google, and LinkedIn to identify trends and even what colors or keywords might be performing. Do you want to give us a little detail on how those insights actually shape ad generation, what that experience might be like? Try and describe it.
What we do is we get, let's say top performing keywords, or we realize that a certain object within the ad is driving higher conversion rates, higher return on ad spend. We realize certain colors are driving higher, click-through rates or conversion rates. Well, all that now can be automatically incorporated into the prompt of generating that new ad. And so it's the seamless interface between the top performing features we have and then automatically incorporating those features into the generation so that the ad, for example, I can even say from Omneky's own examples, we've seen that ads with, a person wearing a kind of a blazer, kind of looking business professional person on a laptop has been correlated with driving higher conversion rates. And so therefore our AI will automatically, when they're generating ads for us, we'll incorporate a person. And for us, actually also adds that feature, a female, it's like a female professional has been correlated with driving higher conversion. So it would generate a female in a business suit, working on a laptop, launching their campaigns. And then, we've seen like the phrase, disrupt or focusing on the data-driven element of the platform has been getting correlated with driving higher results for us. And so and then the AI will automatically incorporate those keywords into the phrases and into the copy of the ad. And, that work, that's done now, within a minute of generating, getting the insights during the ad, that used to take weeks of, a marketing analyst and a designer chatting with each other, sharing, slinging back and forth creative briefs. And now that's done instantly, very cheaply through our interface automatically. And so, and not only is our system driving higher performance in terms of the costs and the time, but also actually higher performance in terms of the results as well, because historically, because it was so difficult to translate insights into creative, a lot of it wasn't done. And now it's already automatically embedded into the creative itself, those insights. And so therefore it's easier to get done. It's trivial to get done. And therefore those insights are being better incorporated into the creative and therefore seeing better results for our users and for our own advertisers.
Are people having to integrate your system with each of the platforms to get that data, or are you just plugging into Google Analytics?
Yeah, so customers need to connect their own ad accounts to our platform. So as part of onboarding, we request customers connect their Meta and Google and LinkedIn and TikTok, and all this can be done self-service. We automatically then ingest all this data into our platform and then start showing insights and suggesting creative as well. What we'll do, we self-serve users can sign up and see this. Our AI will actually recommend creative. We'll take the top performing creative that you're currently running, and then we'll suggest suggestions for how to improve that creative based on the AI insights. And then you can just click execute, and then it'll go and execute those suggestions on the ad. And then you'll get your next iteration of ad completely autonomously within, as easy as clicking that button. And so that's automatically integrating the insights from Meta and Google and all these other platforms into writing those suggestions, into showing what the top performing ad is, and then suggesting improvements for that top performing ad.
We think a lot about messaging here, right? Messaging strategy. And what we see when we look at ad performance, like I guess in an analog way, right? We're trying to generate insights on our own. And a lot of times we see ads fail because they're leading with the features, not addressing the problem to be solved or the work to be done. And how do we on this platform test messaging and, get to the messages that work on pain points rather than capability. Because I think it's really easy. It's easy for inexperienced marketers to lead with features as opposed to the problems to be solved or the benefits of solving them. So how do you guys turn the knobs on that?
It's not about speeds and fees. It's about the jobs to be done. So if you go to your analytics dashboard, you can see the top performing, well, several things here. Right? Number one is the various persuasion tactics and kind of pain points is a kind of a column within our interface. And you can actually kind of dig deeper in terms of like, is it FOMO or is it a certain kind of, am I buying it because I trust an authority? Because, for example, there's image of a doctor and that kind of elicits certain trust that then is correlated with driving higher performance in these campaigns. And so we extract thousands of features from the creative, and design is an infinitely variable thing. And the combination of those elements is incredibly complex in terms of how all that kind of works together to communicate a value prop very succinctly. And so we extract thousands of different features from each ad, the persuasion tactics, the objects, the size of the fonts, the size of the product photo, who is the hero of this image, what is the main center of attention of this image visually? If it's a video, then what are the first things that appear in the first 5 seconds? What are the video hooks? And so we extract all those features and then we showcase to the customer through our analytics dashboard, well, these are the kind of combination of features that we see driving higher performance. And the customers can then dig in and drill down into each one of these features and kind of unlock additional insights through our interface. Those are the various ways that customers can use our tool to kind of figure out really what the underlying pain points are that is most appealing that you're solving for that end customer. And again, at the same time, it depends on the persona that you're targeting. There may be different pain points that are resonating depending on who you're reaching, who you're targeting those ads for. So the pain point that a mom is living, who's living in say the Upper West Side of New York, may be different from a teenager in San Francisco or someone living in Texas. And so that, you can also therefore segment this data based on the audience as well, and the campaigns and the ad sets and the audience targeting. So you can then see, okay, well, these are the features that are driving higher performance for this particular target audience. And then I want to optimize my campaign for them. What makes the ad performance, it's the problem you're solving, but also the way you're communicating that problem in a very high trust way that is, elicits trust from that end customer that you are the person that's, the company or service that can best solve this problem. And then there's all these design elements and features and kind of signals within the creative that either adds to that trust or detracts from that trust. And so it's, we're helping kind of unlock and unearth and kind of discover what those combination of features are for each audience.
I want to dig a little deeper into testing, because it's an interesting part of this. And when we did the prep, you talked about brute forcing.
Yeah.
It's right. Like having thousands of creative variations, which I guess you have to have a fair amount of budget to be able to test that many variations. But where do we draw the line between scale and creative strategy? How do we as users of this kind of tech, make things smarter rather than just, proliferating?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think there's really, because in advertising today, there's really 2 stakeholders. There's obviously the end customer, right? Which is someone who's ended up clicking the ad and buying the product. But there's actually another gatekeeper in between that, which is the algorithms and the platforms and what types of ads get the best distribution on the platforms as well. And so even if you have a great idea for that end customer, if it doesn't get the reach, if it doesn't, get targeted to the right people, then the ad isn't going to perform. And so that's really where I think this brute force approach is very important and valuable, is that you can have that strategy, the big idea, but you still need to execute that strategy in an algorithmic way to really break through all the noise and all the kind of complexities of these distribution algorithms to make sure that your strategy and your messaging is reaching that end customer that you're seeking. And I think just, the arc of technology in some ways I feel is just like, volume and kind of a lot of problems can just be solved by more scale and more volume and more quantity, essentially. More quantity of data can solve problems that were not solvable with small amounts of data. More amount of compute can solve problems that weren't able to solve with less amount of compute. And more creative can drive higher performance in advertising campaigns that could not have been driven with less number of creative. And so that's kind of our approach. Is that's kind of the mindset we have in terms of building our platform and enabling these tools for our advertisers.
And I have a question we didn't really talk about before, but I think it's something that's worth trying to just touch on, which is advertising, depending on the category, right, is more or less regulated. There's
Yeah.
rules of engagement. How do you guys ensure that the the ads and variations, maybe hundreds of variations, are compliant? Like, let's say it's a local dentist, right? There are certain promises they can or can't make. How do you go about that?
From the very beginning, one of our largest cohorts of customers are in these heavily regulated industries. So I would say like health related medical products, gambling products, and fintech products, weight loss. I mean, these have historically been, a decent percentage of our customer base. And I think the reason why they use our platform and they come to us is because we have a whole set of guardrails regarding compliance. So first of all, when a customer signs up, they upload, when we scrape their brand information, we also have a section called, compliance, like what words can you and can't you use? What imagery can you and can't use? If you're in fintech, for example, you can't say anything related to free money. And if you're in healthcare, you definitely can't necessarily guarantee outcomes. And so all those rules are embedded in the brand management section, and customers can confirm that. And then on top of that, we have a whole approval flow. So the ad is never automatically launched. You can actually edit our creative through kind of this chat interface once the ad is generated to make it more compliant. You can leave comments, and then ultimately it's up to the user to launch the ad themselves. And so we have a lot of guardrails regarding compliance, kind of the regulatory nature of these different industries that we service, to make sure that the ad ultimately benefits the consumer and helps them save time and scale through our tool. But it's a great question. And again, I think this is actually an area that we've historically done well with, which is why, CBD platforms use our tool, and crypto companies use our tool, and other companies in these regulated industries use our tool.
That's great. I have two more things I want to be able to get to in our episode. So one of them is results. Can you sort of generalize, how much of an improvement you can expect from a platform like yours? And maybe if you have an example of a client you worked on that you want to share. And if not a specific client, what are the characteristics of campaigns that have really benefited most?
Yeah. So we have case studies on our website, and you can see there the results we've been able to deliver. One customer that I have top of mind here is a company called Omneky, which is a vegan healthcare beauty brand. Year over year, we were able to deliver a 2x increase in sales and a 3.5 increase in return on ad spend based on discoveries like focusing on the vegan element of their product, or the fact that their product is cruelty free, when that kind of phrasing regarding their offering was correlated with driving higher engagement and sales. I would say that in general, you don't necessarily need a humongous budget to be running hundreds of variations of ads, because the worst case is the ad just doesn't get viewed. And it's better, I think, and oftentimes Meta does give at least a handful of views for each creative you upload, and Meta has their own algorithm for determining which
Sure.
ads
We've, by the way, definitely observed this, that the more creative units, it's sort of like at bats, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you get more at bats. And in fact, I think it was either LinkedIn or Meta that's being explicit
Yeah,
about
for sure.
saying, hey, you need to make many, it was Meta recently, right? They just said
Exactly.
you need many more variations to get as many exposures on the platform. So
Well, it's like you want more horses in the race. If you have a portfolio, you want a diversified portfolio of stocks to drive higher performance. And so, yeah, the larger basket of options you can give Facebook and Meta to choose from when serving an ad on Meta or Instagram or any of their other platforms, the more likely it is that they can find the right creative for the right person at the right moment in time. And then at the same time is also you have ad fatigue. So if a person sees an ad for more than 4 times, conversion rates tend to decrease by 50% if they see the same ad. So therefore, it's even if your ad isn't getting viewed by everyone, you definitely want to do it, make it so that the second or third time they see the ad, every single time they see the ad, they see some unique value prop, or at least you're kind of progressing the story of your brand with that end viewer and that end potential customer. And so it is highly suggested that you run and launch as much creative as possible to drive optimal performance, even if you do not have a humongous ad budget, or even in medium size, even with a small ad budget. There's no downside in necessarily uploading more creative that Meta can choose from when they're making a decision to serve an ad. And what we've seen, therefore, is that customers that have more ads running that Meta can select from does see higher performance. because there's less issues with ad fatigue. There's better personalization of the ad. So maybe this person has a very niche interest, and maybe this particular creative you upload doesn't have a humongous market, but for this particular niche interest, it's the right ad for that person at that time. And so by just giving the options to these platforms to select from, you're more likely to have a higher conversion rate. So therefore, it's now about, okay, well, how do you make sure that as I'm creating all this content, that it's on brand and that it aligns with the brand guidelines and it follows regulations, and that I'm following the analytics properly to make sure that it's performing, and I'm turning off ads perhaps that aren't performing, and how to do this cheaply and as fast as possible. And those are the problems that we're solving with our platform.
Let's turn our attention to the future here a little bit. I wonder how you see AI evolving in advertising. You talked a lot about your current state. Clearly, there's a productivity gain here, but there's also people very concerned about displacement in the workplace. No surprise. How are you guys approaching that with your customers and prospects, this notion of productivity versus job loss? What pitfalls do you as an organization try and help your customers to avoid?
Well, I think, generally this is like economics 101, which is more productivity creates job growth. This is just a fact of economics, is if you have a more productive workforce, you're going to have more jobs. So the idea that productivity hurts growth, we haven't seen that to be the case historically. Generally, I think every business owner and management team has infinite ideas of things they want to do with their business, things that they never got around to, things that just they don't have the resources for. If you would ask a CEO of a company, are you, if they're out of ideas, they should retire, right? I mean, no CEO is ever out of ideas for how they can grow their business. What they're out of is resources. Well, if you can improve productivity, then you have more resources to pursue your other ideas. And so again, effective leadership, fountain of ideas. They always have more ideas how to improve the business. I think that's actually a feature of a good CEO and a good leader is, innovation and how they're trying to compete against with new ideas. And then so AI only creates more resources, increases productivity. It lets them pursue more ideas. And so that would result in job growth, because now you have more ideas and you need more people to pursue those new ideas. And you also have more resources left over to hire people to pursue those new ideas. And so the idea that increased productivity will result in job losses, I'm not sure if that's necessarily true. I think you may have instances where maybe the CEO doesn't have new ideas, in which case then maybe they're going to, all that increased productivity will go back to share buybacks or dividends, something like this. But then that money will go back into the economy, into new investments that will create new opportunities as well. So that's kind of, just a pretty strong belief I've had from early in being in AI and seeing that happen and kind of, obviously working in this space. For us, I think the future of advertising is that advertising and AI is going to be bigger. I think, advertising is only 1% of GDP today, global GDP, but I think as ads, targeted ads in particular drive more sales for customers, I think you could take over a lot and more market share from the sales function as well. What does an average salesperson do these days? But just send cold emails or do cold calls, but those are actually less effective. Most of those calls are going to spam or emails are going to spam, but an ad, if you can track a user, they sign up self-service, they buy your product self-service, an ad is better personalized, it's actually probably more persuasive, and you can probably attribute it in a more data-driven way. I think marketing and advertising can go from this cost center historically, which is more about brand building, to a revenue driver. And a lot of our customers are seeing ads as revenue drivers. That's why they're spending more money in ads. And that's why they're seeking higher return on ad spend with our tool. I'm really quite bullish on the growth of advertising, the growth of AI, and the growth of the economy, and growth of probably new jobs and employment from all the new ideas that people can pursue due to the improved productivity gains.
Yeah, that's a really optimistic and great place to land our episode. Hikari, that was a lot of fun. If people want to reach out to you or learn more about your company, how can they do that?
Well, you can definitely visit our website at www.omneky.com. You can follow us on LinkedIn, on Twitter. We're at Omneky, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Meta. You can join our channel on Reddit, and follow us also on YouTube. And so those are some of the places. You can also email me at hi@omneky.com, hi@omneky.com. You can sign up for a free trial on our website.
Awesome. If people want to reach me, I'm on LinkedIn/in/Ken Lempit. My advertising and demand generation agency for SaaS is Austin Lawrence Group at austinlawrence.com. If you haven't subscribed to the SaaS Backwards podcast yet, you may do so most places where podcasts are distributed. You can also watch the video on our YouTube channel. Hikari Senju, thank you so much for being on SaaS Backwards.
Thank you, Ken.